We do have all board members and all of the expected staff members on.
Wonderful. So then the next thing for us to do is to do the call to order and establishment of quorum. Rebecca?
Great, thank you. So you called order at 10 a.m. I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call really quick. Dr. Dara Thompson.
Present.
Dr. Greta D'Amico.
Present.
Dr. Vera Singleton. Dr. Singleton, are you on? Okay, we'll go back to Dr. Singleton. Dr. Mukherjee?
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Bruce Davidson?
I'm present.
Wonderful, thank you. Dr. Mina Yoon?
Present.
Great. And Mr. Andy Yam?
And present.
Wonderful, thank you very much. And Dr. Vera Singleton, do we have you on the line and can you hear us? Well, we have quorum without Dr. Singleton. I'll come back to her in a few minutes. She may just not have come back to her computer yet.
Thank you, Rebecca.
Of course, thank you.
I believe the next thing we need to do is ask for public comment on items not on the agenda.
And this is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on a topic that does not appear later on the agenda, you can look for the question mark icon and click that. You'll see a text box. Type the word comment into that text box and click send. The other option is to raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, typically at the bottom of the WebEx screen, or if you're on a mobile device, it might be behind the 3-dot other options. And if you are a call-in user, you can press *3 to raise your hand. Each commenter will have 3 minutes to speak with a 30-second warning. And it does look like there are a couple of technical issues. So our webcaster had audio issues. We will give people just a moment. Are there any comments from anyone who is not on a topic that does not yet appear on the agenda that you'd like to call to the board's attention? And I do not see any requests for comment. And one moment while we verify that our audio and video issues are resolved. Thank you for your patience. And I do believe that we have our issues resolved. Let's see. Rebecca, is there a way that you could?
I'm trying to reach out to Dr. Singleton offline right now. Give me a second.
But the rest of the meeting is audible and okay.
Yes, I think so. Thank you.
I'm here. I'm sorry I missed the roll call. This is Dr. Singleton.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Singleton. I have you down.
And then shall I go ahead and close public comment then? There was no comment on items not on the agenda.
That would be great. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Hey, I want to welcome everyone to this meeting of the not the Naturopathic Medical Committee anymore, the California Board of Naturopathic Medicine. It is, excuse me, December 14th, 2023. Thank you everyone for taking time out of your busy schedules during the holiday season to attend and deal with these important issues. We have several items on the agenda, but before we get started, I just want to mention that this is the last meeting for board member Greta D'Amico. Dr. D'Amico has been on the board. We entered at around the same time, and we've served together for over 8 years, and for, is it the past 5 years, Rebecca, as chair and vice chair, and I cannot say enough how valuable she has been to this board. She is tireless in her dedication. She is meticulous in her scrutiny, and I have always known that I can depend on her. So Greta, we are going to miss you. Hopefully we can still contact you, and we are just wishing you all the best in the next steps in your life.
Of course. Thank you so much.
So Rebecca, do we have any, it says here on the agenda, discussion and possible action. Is there something specific we're supposed to go over? Oh, are you going to
No.
go over that here?
Yeah, no, there wasn't anything. I was just giving you an opportunity to bring anything that you needed up to the board.
I think we have enough items on the agenda. So then are we moving on to agenda item 7?
Yes, 7E for the budget update, correct. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. Okay, so my name is Christina Ritchie. I am a budget analyst with the DCA Budget Office. I want to thank the board and the executive staff for allowing me a few minutes to present on agenda item 7E, the board's expenditure projections and the fund condition statement. First, I'm going to start with the board's expenditures, page E1 of your materials for item 7. These projections are based on actual data through fiscal month 4. This report includes 2022/23 actual expenditures, as well as 2023-24 budgeted and projected expenditures. As we move to the end of the document, you will see that the board, you will see the board had a beginning base balance of approximately $747,000 and is projected to spend a little over $698,000, creating a reversion of the board's fund of just under $49,000, a reversion percentage of 6.55%. The next document I will be going over is the board's revenue projections, page E2 of your materials. This report includes receipts collected through October and projected revenue to the year end. I will go further into the projections as we transition to the next slide. So for page E3 of your materials is the board's fund condition statement. As a reminder, we read this document top to bottom, left to right. The left column is the board's prior year 2022-23 actuals. It shows the board began 2022-23 with a beginning balance of just over $732,000, collected $558,000 in revenues, with $105,000 with initial license fees, $424,000 from license renewals, and $29,000 was collected from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenue. The board expended approximately $402,000, which includes $28,000 in direct draws of the fund or statewide pro rata and pension payments. The board ended 22-23 with approximately $888,000 in reserve balance, or about 14.7 months in reserve. For the current year, 2023-24, the board projects revenues of 564,000 with 102,000 projected from initial license fees, 442,000 from renewal fees, and 20,000 from the issuance of citations, fines, delinquent fees, and other revenue. The board's 2023-24 expenditures are based on the Budget Act with FM4 projections at 727,000 between authorized expenditures and direct draws to the fund leaving the board with a fund balance of approximately 725,000 or 11.3 months in reserves. The budget office will continue to monitor the board's revenue and expenditure and report back to the board with monthly expenditure projections as we continue to close fiscal months in the current fiscal year. A few things to note of the board's fund condition. The fund condition is a snapshot in time. One of the main factors driving expenditure increases in future years is a result of personal service adjustments. These include general salary increases, as well as employee compensation and retirement rate adjustments. The board's office includes a conservative ongoing 3% increase to expenditures on the fund condition statement to account for these ongoing incremental adjustments. You will also notice revenue is projected static in the out years. Lastly, I would like to note to the board that any future legislation or unanticipated events could result in the board's need for additional resources, which would create post pressure on the fund. The budget office will continue to monitor the board's fund condition statement and keep the line of communication open with the executive staff, open for any future needs or expectation. So again, thank you for allowing me an opportunity to present at today's meeting, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. I'm not sure if Harmony is on, but yeah, she is also a budget manager here that works closely with me and the board. So.
And this is the moderator. I just promoted Harmony, so if she chooses to, she can unmute herself. It does look like we do have a board member question, though.
Hi, this is Dr. D'Amico. I was just wondering if the expenditures reflect the new position that's been created in the board and the resultant need for a managerial level person, which I don't think we have the budget for and hasn't been, I don't really know the status, but I just wondered if that's been reflected in our projections.
Harmony, would you like to address these?
If Harmony's not on there, I can add to that. So we have received the budgeting for the new position. It is an analyst position that we will be hiring for the consumer protection analyst, which is our enforcement division. We just have not hired the person yet, so we have a little bit of cost savings this fiscal year for that position. We were authorized in July, and of course, just the recruiting process takes a while. So we actually do have an update a little while into this meeting about the new position. So I'll go ahead and update everybody.
I just mean, is the money for that reflected in this projection?
It is, yes.
Okay. And then is the money needed? There was another requirement about something being management level in order to have 2 people or something. Is that reflected in here?
So at this point, no, we do not have the authority to hire another management level. So at this time, it's just kind of
no authority, no budget. Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
And I think there's an issue with Harmony's mic. She is present. It just sounds like she's having technical issues, which we have gotten new laptops, and it has been something. So she is present, but yeah, it's a mic issue. So sorry about that.
This is Dr. Thompson. I am wondering, as I look at this top line here, we have the past year, current year, and then the projected years in the future. There's this sharp drop off projection for our reserve, going from 725 to 514 to 288. And I guess my question is, what do we need to do about that? Do you understand what I'm asking about?
I'm sorry, I think I missed that. What was the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Can everyone hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you. It was just kind of going in and out in my earpiece.
Oh, I apologize. On this very top section of that's being projected on the screen right now, there is the balance of our account, and we have the past year, the current year, and then as we look at the years in the future, that projected balance drops from 725 to 514 to 288. And that trend looks concerning to me, and I don't know if that's just a numbers issue where that isn't actually going to be a problem in the long term, or if that's something we need to think about and adjust for.
Well, I can certainly let budget jump in. Are you with
I
us?
think I could hear you, Harmony, for a
Okay.
second. Yeah.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Hi. So right now, one thing to note with the fund condition is if you'll notice on the expenditure, the 1111 expenditure projection line, that's also reflecting that the board expend to their full appropriation. So any additional savings that aren't spent out of that full appropriation will help that reserve balance. Every year we do annual drills to look at the revenue and update future revenue projections. So again, this is just based off of a snapshot in time. Any concerns with the fund balance declining, we would be working closely with Rebecca and addressing that ahead of time.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thanks, Harmony.
I think for newer board members, it just to say it's been my experience that it always looks like this. And you can see that we still have reserve even with no changes, even at the end, even though it's a lot smaller. So it's actually okay. And it always looks like this every year.
Yeah, our budget unit does a very good job of keeping us on track. So we definitely get those heads up before it becomes an issue. So if it ever does look like we are unbalanced, we will start taking action to mitigate those risks. Were there any other questions for the budget team? All right, I guess you guys got off easy this time. Thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And it's always a pleasure working with you guys. So
Thanks, Christine.
I need to ask for any public comment on that.
This is the moderator, and we have opened up the Q&A feature of WebEx to facilitate public comment. If anyone would like to make a comment, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment into that text box and click send, or you may click on the hand icon to raise your hand, and our call-in users may press *3 on their phone to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any questions on the budget report? And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Please do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so our next agenda item is the legislative update. Do we have guests here to discuss that?
We do, I believe. Aubrey Hopkins is our legislative analyst, and she will be presenting today.
Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Aubrey Hopkins, and I'm a legislative analyst with the Department of Consumer Affairs. I'm going to be going over some legislation and bills that passed this most recent session that might impact the board, and also giving some information about how to make requests for your own legislative and statutory changes. The first bill that we have is AB 883, which I believe you can access the text of the bill in your meeting materials. This bill is titled Business Licenses, United States Department of Defense Skill Bridge Program. And what this bill does is it requires boards and bureaus within the department to expedite license applications from active duty military members who are participating in the Department of Defense's Skill Bridge Program. It goes into effect on July 1st, 2024. Currently, boards and bureaus are required to expedite applications from military veterans, and so this would add participants in the Skill Bridge program to that list. The intent of the bill is to expand the number of applicants who are eligible for expedited application processing to include active duty service members that will be separating from the military service within 180 days. In terms of implementation, the board will need to work with the Office of Information Services to update applications to inquire whether applicants are Skill Bridge program participants, work with OIS to update the board's website, and update application processing procedures to identify and prioritize applications submitted by Skill Bridge participants. And are we going to go through all of the bills and take questions at the end, or do you want to take questions bill by bill?
I think at the end would be fine.
Okay.
Is that okay with you, Dara?
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Perfect.
Perfect. Okay. So that brings us to SB 143, which is titled State Government, very succinct. This bill is a trailer bill that helps the department implement Public Law 117-333. And that law is a federal law that became effective on January 5, 2023. The federal law allows military service members and their spouses who hold professional licenses in a different state to practice in California within the same professional discipline and in a similar scope of practice, if they're required to relocate to California due to military orders. Although the federal law provides a general framework, without state legislation, there were clarity issues and consumer protection gaps which needed to be addressed. Among other provisions, this bill establishes a state registration process for individuals eligible to practice under the federal law. In terms of implementation, the Office of Information Services has been working on creating a portal, and I believe that went live recently, that can be utilized by all boards and bureaus to capture online information regarding individuals seeking to practice in California under the federal law. The portal should be completed by the end of November 2023. And like I said, I believe that went live a few weeks ago. Each board and bureau will need to establish a procedure for processing these requests and ensure staff are notified of this process. The next bill is SB 372, which is titled the Department of Consumer Affairs Licensee and Registrant Records Name and Gender Changes. This bill requires the board and all licensing entities within the department to update license records after receiving government-issued documentation legally changing a licensee's name or gender. This bill also requires licensing entities to remove a licensee's old name from online license verification systems if requested by the licensee. It also provides a process for individuals to access a licensee's enforcement records under their prior name. This bill is intended to limit dead naming of licensees while still preserving consumer protection. As far as implementation, the Office of Information Services will work with the board to establish a process to update a licensee's name or gender upon request of that individual and receipt of government-issued documentation. OIS will also work with the board to establish a process to reissue a license with an updated legal name or gender upon request, without charging more than the regulatory established fee for reissuing a document. Establish a process to replace references to a licensee's former name and gender with their current name and gender, including an online verification systems. Remove enforcement records accessible through public search on an online license verification system that show the former name or gender of a licensee. Instead of the enforcement records, a statement will show up directing the consumer that the individual was subject to enforcement action, and they should contact the licensing agency for more information. The board will still be required to comply with the California Public Records Act, including responding to a request for records within 10 days from receipt. Our next bill is SB 544, titled Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act Teleconferencing. Among other things, this bill removes existing teleconference requirements within the Bagley-Keene Open Meeting Act. Instead, it requires a state body to provide a means for the public to remotely hear audio of the meeting, remotely observe the meeting, or attend the meeting by providing the following on the posted agenda. And that information that would be required to be put on the posted agenda includes a teleconference phone number, an internet website or other online platform, and a physical address for at least one location, including, if available, access that is equivalent to the access enjoyed by the member of the state body participating remotely. This bill also revises the Bagley-Keene Act to no longer require physical public access at each teleconference location, and instead requires the specific means of access to the meeting to be included in the meeting notice. The intent of this bill is to allow state bodies to continue conducting board meetings via teleconference in order to increase public participation. For implementation, the board will need to be aware of the new teleconference provisions and reserve publicly accessible physical locations for board meetings scheduled after January 1, 2024. AB 1021 is titled Controlled Substances Rescheduling. This bill allows healing arts prescribers to prescribe a substance that is currently prohibited due to its classification as a Schedule I drug by the federal government, if that substance were to be reclassified or otherwise allowed to be prescribed under federal law. The bill does not apply to cannabis products that are currently authorized and regulated in California. For implementation, the board should not need to take any action to implement the provisions of this bill, since it's dependent on a rescheduling by the federal government. AB 1707 is titled Health Professionals and Facilities, Adverse Actions Based on Another State's Law. This bill prohibits healing arts boards within the department from denying a license or imposing discipline on individuals solely because they were punished in another state for performing sensitive services that would be lawful to provide in California. For implementation, the board should notify licensees of the changes and inform relevant staff. AB 1731, titled Cures Database Buprenorphine. I hope I'm saying that right. This bill creates a limited exemption for healthcare practitioners working in the emergency department of a general acute care hospital when prescribing buprenorphine, so that they will no longer be required to consult the Controlled Substances Utilization Review and Evaluation System. For implementation, the board may need to notify licensees of the changes and inform relevant staff. And finally, we have SB 345, Healthcare Services Legally Protected Healthcare Activities. This bill safeguards reproductive and gender-affirming care by protecting healthcare licensees from criminal or disciplinary action solely for providing that care. This bill also protects consumers by prohibiting the collection, use, disclosure, or retention of the personal information of someone in the vicinity of a family planning center. Additionally, it allows unemancipated minors to obtain an abortion without the consent of a parent or guardian, and makes updates to statutory terminology regarding fetuses. For implementation, the board may need to notify licensees of the changes and inform relevant staff. And that concludes the legislation that passed in the most recent session that may have impact to the board. Do I have any questions?
This is Chair Thompson. Because it pertains so much to our meetings as board, want to understand a little bit more about SB 544 and the Open Meeting Act and what that means going forward. I think that, as I understand, we are going to be allowed to continue to meet via teleconference rather than in person. The section that says that we will need to be visible on camera during a certain portion, don't fully understand what that means. A lot of times we do turn off our cameras in order to have more clarity because of connectivity issues. Could somebody, either yourself or Rebecca, give me a little bit more information on that?
Sorry, I'm trying to pull up the section where it talks about being present
It's a-
on camera.
Yeah, there's a section that talks about being present on camera. I don't know if that means we just have to turn our cameras on when we unmute ourselves and we're saying something, or if there's a certain segment of the meeting we need to have our cameras on at all times.
So what I'm reading, it says this bill would require the members of the state body to visibly appear on camera during the open portion of a meeting that is publicly accessible via the internet or other online platform, unless the appearance would be technologically impractical as specified. So it looks like there are situations where you would not necessarily need to be visible on camera. I believe probably it's important that the presenter or whoever's speaking is visible on camera. And that each board member have the ability, I guess is what the word I'm looking for, have the ability to be on camera if they need to.
So,
Madam Chair, this is
yes.
Michael Canocha, legal counsel.
Hi.
Hi, I wanted to go ahead and interject here that actually 544 does permit the board to continue meeting through a new teleconferencing option, but it is not quite as allowing in terms of allowing all board members to participate electronically or virtually. It no longer does that. So a majority of the board would still need to meet in a public location, a physical location, and then additional board members can be permitted to attend virtually via whatever platform we're using, WebEx. And there's also a provision that allows a board member who has a disability to request to basically an accommodation to appear remotely as well. There's a different method that allows purely advisory bodies to meet fully electronically, but that does not apply to the board.
So practically speaking, going forward, I know one of the major issues for us is that because California is a large state, we have board members who live in Northern California, we have board members who live in Southern California, and we have a small budget. So there's often a lot of issue with like, are we going to get the Southern California members up here physically for a board meeting? In the last couple of years, not having to do those in person, it's made a difference, right? So then I guess I'm really trying to understand what this means practically going forward after January 1st for us as board. How many of us would need to be in person in Sacramento? And what does that look like for us? I guess it's just my question.
Yeah, well, I'll speak briefly and then I'll let Rebecca address this, but the requirement will be that at the physical location where the meeting is being conducted, you'll have to have 5 members there, members above 5, wherever that location is, whether it's in Sacramento or San Francisco or in Southern California.
It has to be a public meeting space that other people can get to. And those 5 members have to be together in the same public meeting space, or they can't be in separate public meeting spaces.
Under this method, they have to be in the same public, physical, in-person meeting space. That's a mouthful. But the original teleconference option, where it's sort of the legal fiction that all of that the meeting is occurring at several different teleconferencing locations, that is also still available. but that just involves the additional complexity of needing to notice each of the locations where a board member is present as a public location, and it would need to be a public place like an office or a conference room or a library, or somewhere that the public can attend. Personal residences and other places like that, we don't advise for those. So there is, in that sense, still the opportunity to meet fully virtually. The other point of complexity there is if we lose the connection to any one of the teleconferencing sites, then the meeting will need to either go into recess until it can be reestablished, or would have to be adjourned. If we can't get one of the sites online as the meeting's starting, we would have to cancel the meeting.
I see. Okay. And that's all goes into place January 1st. All right.
Well, the current authority to just meet electronically without any of those requirements, that expires on December 31st of this year, and then this new option takes effect. So then we're sort of back to original Bagley-King language, where you have to meet in person unless you do the traditional teleconference, where all the locations have to be publicly accessible and noticed in the agenda. So then 544 adds this other option where the board could meet in person with a quorum in the room, and then additional board members can participate remotely. And then again, if you have a board member that has a medical or disability related reason that they can't attend, they can in advance request an exemption, and then you would only need, for your board, you would only need 4 members in the
I see.
So that is what the legislature did, and I don't think that's something that we were predicting in terms of trying to sort of draw that line, as opposed to having just fully in-person meetings or fully electronic meetings. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that clarification.
You're welcome.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate. It definitely, the cost of doing business now is going to be relative to how many of the folks that we need to have in person down here. But we will definitely facilitate the most cost-effective way of holding our meetings. So we will make sure that we take that into account, but that we still need to take care of business.
This is Dr. D'Amico. I have a question. Being present is a majority or a quorum? So if you only have 6 people on your board, even though you're supposed to have 9, you still would need 5 present?
Michael, jumping back in here, yes, you would need 5, because it's a majority. A majority of the board refers to the positions, the number of members on the board, as opposed to the
Actual
board member
filled
positions that
positions.
are actually occupied at the moment.
All right. So then we might think about having the meeting in a place that has the largest number of board members, whether it be Southern or Northern California, just to save money on transporting people to one or the other location.
May I ask the question next?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for going into that. I just wanted to I guess, kind of make a quick comment as well. I believe this is sort of the same format that I have down in LA County with another commission. This sort of the alternative, like, teleconferencing part of it. And so, for me, my experience and perhaps the suggestion ways that we can implement, to a great point made by my colleague Greta D'Amico, to have meetings primarily for areas where there are the most people, and then allowing folks to then post alternative conference sites to the agenda. I did have a question though. If you do get the exemption based on, I believe, was it medical or disability? I believe was it. Would you then have to post your location as well to the agenda? Is that then required?
That is a good clarification question. Michael, did you have an answer to that?
Yeah, and it would not be required. So then, I mean, the idea is that you are getting an accommodation so you can participate virtually from your home or wherever you're abiding at the moment.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Thanks, Michael. Were there any other questions on that? Okay, I don't see any. All right, were there any other questions to any of the other bills that were presented? Yes, Mr. Yam.
Yes, here again. Just a quick question on, I believe it was agenda 8A, agenda item 8A, the Skill Bridge program. Not necessarily a question on the program itself, but as someone who's new to the board and new to this sort of regulatory body, could you provide, probably a question for Rebecca, a bit of an insight into what the difference between expediting a license is as opposed to just simply the normal process, and how that kind of, if there's a state sort of threshold for what meets expedited?
Absolutely, I can definitely answer that for you. So we do have a process in place for military personnel, and actually we've always had it in place. So we didn't have to jump through hoops when this actually came to us. So anytime we have an applicant and they state that they are a military personnel or the spouse of a military personnel, it actually gets processed immediately. We do not hold it. It doesn't. I mean, it goes right through. So it's something that our analyst knows that if it is a military personnel or the spouse of military, that they will take that application and it goes on to the top of the pile. So reviews are expedited. So it comes to management level for that secondary review, and then at that point, it gets processed for approval.
And to that end, I guess it was more of like, is there some sort of, I guess, is that internal policy or harsh, or like the hard threshold for which, like, an application has to be processed in 3, 5 per se days, or is it really just kind of more like a flag for importance, I think, in a procedural matter within the department?
So, I'm not sure if there is an actual timeline with this skill bridge. I'd have to look it up. I know that we actually process and approve everything that we have in the office. If we have all of the documents that are required for an applicant, we are very good at keeping within a 7-day approval process for those applications. We are probably one of the fastest processors for licensing in under the Department of Consumer Affairs. So we are very proud of that stat. But in the terms of our military personnel, we definitely try to get that out within that 24-hour to 48-hour period after it's been approved. We actually let them know, and so it is a little bit faster than our 7-day turnaround for those regular applications. But thank you for that question. I appreciate it.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Of course. Any other questions before going to public comment?
I see a hand from Bruce Davidson.
Yes, Dr. Davidson.
Hi, thank you very much. I was noting that SB 143 also makes reference to the ability of the board to meet remotely. Could someone just explain the relationship, if any, between that bill and the bill we've been discussing, SB 544?
Want me to take that, Rebecca?
Sure, that'd be great. Thanks.
The provision in hi Dr. Davidson. The provision in 143 is the one that extended temporarily the authority that we've had for the period of the pandemic that allows us to meet fully virtually like we are meeting today. So it was just that extension piece from July 1st, 2023 until December 31st, 2023, and then the new rules take effect. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, great. Thank you very much. Got it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Michael. All right. Any other questions? I don't see any. Moderator, did you want to open it up for public comment?
Certainly. And we have opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If anyone would like to make a comment on the legislation discussed, we can, you can either click on the question mark and then type the word comment in that text box and click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Are there any questions on the legislative update? And I do not see any questions. Shall I close the public comment feature?
That would be great. Thank you. And then we also have a presentation from Aubrey as well.
Fantastic.
Okay, I'm going to give a brief overview about the difference between legislative proposals and omnibus bills. So we're going to cover what is a legislative proposal, what an omnibus bill is, and how you as a board can submit legislative requests, that is, requests for statutory amendments or changes. A legislative proposal is a request for a statutory amendment. They are brought to an individual legislator by the board. If the legislator agrees, they will introduce the bill and serve as its author. Legislative proposals are intended to seek statutory changes that may be more substantive, complicated, or controversial. Examples of legislative proposals include new license types, changes to education or training requirements, changes that will enhance enforcement, changes that increase consumer protection, and substantial changes to statute. An omnibus bill is authored by a legislative committee like the Assembly Business and Professions Committee or the Senate Business Professions and Economic Development Committees. And they generally include statutory changes that are non-controversial, technical in nature, and have no costs or are absorbable within existing resources. To have requests for statutory changes included in an omnibus bill, boards must submit their proposals to the committee for consideration. Examples of omnibus bill requests include removing redundant or obsolete statutes, updating the names of state agencies, removing gendered language throughout a practice act, updating statutory terminology and phrases, and clarifying existing statute. For both legislative proposals and omnibus requests, they should be submitted using the appropriate forms and include draft language of the statute with the requested changes. I've also included a summary of deadlines for legislative proposals and omnibus bills for this upcoming 2024 legislative session. For legislative proposals, the bill introduction deadline is February 16th, 2024. So you would need to find an author to introduce the bill prior to that date. For omnibus bill requests, they are due to the committees by January 12th, 2024, and they're due to the Senate Committee on Business Professions and Economic Development. And that concludes my brief overview. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you. That was so helpful.
Thank you.
Do we need to take public comment on that, or do we move on to the next agenda item?
We can take public comment.
Actually, well, I was gonna, Madam Chair, I was just going to ask where we are on the agenda. Did we move to
have
item
been
10?
skipping, yeah, we have been skipping around a bit in order
Yeah.
to have our guests be able to leave. So are we at this point, Rebecca, are we going back to um, agenda item
3.
Yeah,
Correct.
3.
But the one we just did, was that 10?
That was
Is
8.
8?
Mhm.
Okay, so we haven't done 10 or 11 yet, which is the discussion and possible action on prospective legislative proposals
Correct.
and discussion of and possible action of omnibus legislative proposals. I only asked because that was what was being discussed in that presentation.
Right. And I wanted to have a presentation provided so that the members knew the difference between the two types of legislation requests before we
Got
got
it
to
for
that.
later in the agenda. Okay. Forgive the delay here. But we should take public comment on item 8 as a whole and the presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we are now open for public comment. If any member of the public would like to make a comment, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment into that, and then click send, or you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. And our call-in users can click or press *3 to raise their hand. Are there any public comments? I do not see any requests for public comment. Shall I close that feature? You're welcome.
Okay, so now we are going to go back to agenda item 3, which is the review and possible approval of the June, wow, has it been since June? June 29, 2023 board meeting.
Great. And I had a couple of just grammatical changes that were sent over by Dr. D'Amico. So I've already taken those into account. There were a couple of S's that were not supposed to be there. So we removed those items already. Did any of the did any of the board members have any issues with these minutes, the draft minutes? All right. Well, if there are no questions or comments on this, do we want to go ahead and take a vote, a motion to approve?
I motion to approve the review, I'm sorry, the meeting minutes from June 29, 2023. This is Chair Thompson.
Right. And do I have a second?
I'll
Second
second.
by Dr. Singleton.
Okay, Dr. Singleton, thank you. All right, and I will take a quick vote. Dr. Thompson?
Madam Chair, we need to take public comment on the motion.
Oh,
Thank you.
This is the moderator, and we have opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If anyone would like to make a comment on the minutes, you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in the text box and click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Any comments on the minutes? And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much for keeping us on track. Dr. Dara Thompson?
Aye.
Dr. Greta D'Amico?
Aye.
Dr. Vera Singleton?
Aye.
Dr. Deparshi Mukherjee?
Aye.
Thank you. Dr. Bruce Davidson?
Aye.
Dr. Mina Yoon?
Aye.
And Mr. Andy Yam?
I will abstain, having not been fully present.
Great, thank you. All right. We have 6 ayes and 1 abstention. Thank you. It passes.
Thank you. All right, so I just have to see where we are here. I think that the next agenda item is agenda item number 5. And this has to do with our licensee study. Thank you, Rebecca, for putting this together. We got so much great information. Would you like to fill us in on what we learned?
Sure. Really quick, I have Christy, who's our regulation counsel, on the line, and I think she's going to need to get out of here pretty quickly too. Is there any way that we can go ahead and skip to item 6, which is the regulation update, rulemaking proposal update?
Absolutely. Let's go to item 6 and we'll come back to 5.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, Christy.
Good morning, board members. Christy Shields, Regulations Counsel for the board. So from our last meeting, we had discussions on IV administration, IV therapy administration, and that proposal was sent back to the advisory committee for further work. We had 2 advisory committee meetings. We were going to have a third that ended up being canceled. So my advice was to do further work to complete the proposed text and bring it back to the next board meeting. So our goal is to have text for you to review at our next board meeting. I'm not sure if you have the date for that yet, Ms. Mitchell, but that's the plan. So any questions from the board members on that item? Okay, seeing none. The second item is a delegation of certain functions to the executive officer. The board took action to initiate a rulemaking with proposed text that was presented at the last board meeting. I'm currently waiting for staff to finish compiling the rulemaking file for submission for review and then submission to the Department of Consumer Affairs, who has oversight over regulatory proposals for the boards in the department. So once I get that rulemaking file, then I will move that as quickly as possible, and hopefully we'll have something to report again at your next board meeting. Any questions on that item? And then finally, I think that Ms. Mitchell has put together a rulemaking calendar, so we'll be able to potentially bring other items to our future meetings, including, I think, fees, correct, Ms. Mitchell? So
Correct,
we'll be
yes.
we'll be working on fee increase proposals. As you saw in your budget report, there needs to be some planning around that issue. So if you don't have any further questions for me, I will sign off, and I hope you'll have a great holiday.
Great. Thank you so much, Christy. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Christy. She has just been so helpful with all of this work.
Definitely keeping us on track and making sure that we're going in the right direction. So we do appreciate her.
Wonderful. Should we open for public comment on this, or do we have more that we want to? I think we're going to talk in more detail about what we have done in a separate section, correct, Rebecca?
For the regulations, I think we're done with the regulations. I just wanted to provide you guys with that schedule. And basically, it's just a projected schedule of when we are going to be able to get it published with the OAL, and then for getting it over to our regulations council, and then of course up the chain where it needs to go for approval. So with that being said, you do have that schedule, and we will try our hardest to make sure that we implement these and get them over to everybody that needs to see this during those projected schedules.
And this is the moderator. Would you like me to open for public comment?
Yes, please.
Thank you. And we have opened up the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If anyone has a comment on the presentation, you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment, and then click send. or you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Any comments on this agenda item? And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, now we're going back to agenda item 5, which has to do with the licensee study that was sent out and what it showed us. Thank you, Rebecca.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So you have the materials of what was sent out in your guys's meeting material, and it's also posted online. But we sent out a survey to 1,221 of our licensees. We received 313 responses, and the survey was conducted between November 6th and November 27th of this year. And basically what we were asking is, we had some questions. We were trying to come up with what resources our licensees and any LVNs needed. And then we just kind of spiraled a little bit. We're like, you know what? Let's ask some more questions and kind of gather some information from our licensees to see where there might be some barriers in their practice. And so basically what we did was we requested information, questions to our licensee population of the information about ND supervision of LVNs. Then we also requested information about physician and the ND protocols to allow for the prescribing of drugs. And then we also requested information about IV therapy practices. And if you see, we really did get some great responses. You see that there is 44 pages and you only have, I believe, 20 out of those 44. And the reason being is because the other part of this survey was just the names and license numbers and that type of thing so that we could give the credit to those who took this survey. But basically with this, we do see that there are a handful of those NDs who are already employing LVNs or have LVNs in their practice that they provide as direction to. And with that, a lot of them have already known about the proper statutes that are in place that need to meet those requirements in order to provide those orders and supervision to the LVNs. We did see, though, that there were some people that, or some licensees that were not aware of some of these items. So what we want to do is we want to use what we've collected from our licensees and establish some resources and tools on our website where our NDs can go and kind of see what those established protocols are. We want to see about getting a supervision protocol template that is in place that LVNs and NDs can use in the practice and that meet the requirements by law. We also want to make sure that we are providing information for the legislature as our next sunset comes up and advise them of the barrier that we are seeing when requesting this information from our licensees about those protocols for physician oversight for the prescription of drugs. So basically, and then of course, with the IV therapy practice questions, we'll use that information that we've collected and provide that to our subcommittee, our advisory committee for IV therapy and advanced injection, and allow them to incorporate that with kind of what we need to see in those regulations to help our NDs that are practicing the IV therapy scope. Are there any questions on this survey? Dr. Yoon.
Was there any question that was proposed about how many people switched to a virtual practice versus an in-person?
For telehealth, no, we did not request that information on this survey this time, but we could definitely send another one out to see how many have went to a all virtual telehealth type practice. If you would like, we can definitely do that.
Well, I think that makes a difference on if somebody is hiring an LVN or needs one. If they are virtual, they're not going to most likely need an LVN on staff.
Right, sure. Thank you. And I'm sorry, Andy M.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to, as I do, let me have my camera on when I ask this question. Regarding the question 3, I believe, was just brought up, and I think that question perhaps leaves a bit more to be desired in terms of asking for what reason, again, whether the telehealth thing is a concern or why they don't have LVNs working at the practice, or I don't know whether it's an extra cost that I think would be really great to kind of know and get into. But that would be my suggestion, perhaps then at another survey point.
Great, thank you. And Dr. Singleton.
Yes, I had a question about co-working with the California Naturopathic Doctors Association on putting together this protocol. I know that they have done that in the past. So I was wondering if this is going to be spearheaded from the board, or is it a collaborative project to have the protocol set up?
So this actually, thank you for the question. That's a great question. This is a collaborative, definitely not with CNDA at this point. However, we work with them a lot. We do have a lot of communication back and forth, and so that we kind of know the trends that they're seeing with their membership. They see the trends kind of going on with consumer protection issues, that type of thing. And I do know that they do offer their members a protocol template between the NDs and physician oversight for the drug prescribing. However, when it comes to the LVN protocol, we will probably be working with the BVNPT, which is the board that is over and regulates the LVNs here in California. We actually, the reason that we had the survey in the first place is because we were actually working with them to come up with tools and resources that both the LVNs and the NDs who are going to be working together can have so that they have a successful practice moving forward. So that's basically kind of where this all derived from in the first place. So we will be working with the LVN's board to come up with this practice protocol that you guys can use. And then further, we will also be working with CND because again, we know that they have a great template that they've got for their members in the past. So, it is their document though, so they may or may not share that with us. But the one that we have for the LVNs will be shared and put up onto our website for you guys to use.
Thank you. And do we have a predicted timeline for when this might be completed, like Q1 or Q2?
Oh, definitely in Q1. This is something that we're
Okay.
trying to get done as soon as possible. I know that we're going to be working with strategic planning here as well. So this may be one of those, actions that you guys want to put into the plan as well. So
Yeah, excellent. I was going to recommend that too. Thank you.
thank you. Were there any other questions from our board members? All right. I don't see any further. Thank you.
Then I think we should open for public comment.
And this is the WebEx moderator. We've opened up for public comment. If anyone would like to make a comment on the report, you may look for the question mark icon, click that, type the word comment in that text box and click send. Or you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. And our call-in users may press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes with a 30-second warning. Are there any comments on the report? And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome.
So at this point, we are going to move back to agenda item 7. We already did the budget update, but we're going to get the rest of the executive officers update items A through D.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. And Dr. Singleton, did you still have a question or another question? Perfect.
Oh,
Thanks.
I
I just
didn't.
wanted to make sure. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing you. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the executive officer's update. I would like to move forward one slide to the board member vacancies, please. So as you guys may or may not be aware, the board is still experiencing appointment vacancies. Currently, the following board member positions are vacant. We've got one professional member, that's an ND licensee of the state. That has been vacant since February 2022 and is a governor appointee. And then we also have one physician and surgeon, MD or DO physician position, and that has been vacant since September of 2019. So I do know that we have a little bit of a period there without a physician and surgeon on. We at this point have one on our team right now, but we definitely need another one so that we can start with the minor office procedure advisory committee and the formulary. As a reminder, Mr. Andy Yam was appointed as a public member by the Speaker of the Assembly on June 26, 2023, and we're definitely excited to have him join on our board. And of course, as Dr. Thompson had suggested earlier, Dr. Greta D'Amico, who was first appointed by the board governor on December 29th, 2015. She was reappointed for her second term on December 23rd, 2019. Dr. D'Amico has served our board graciously as the vice chair for the last several years. She's currently serving her grace period, which expires on 12/31/2023, and we will definitely miss Dr. D'Amico and all the experience, dialogue, and work that she's continued to bring to our board throughout the 8 years that she's sat on the board. A huge thank you to you, Dr. D'Amico. We are certainly going to miss you, and I am not going to stop reaching out to you even after you're gone. So the staff remains working with the DCA board and Bureau Relations and the governor's appointment office to get the 2 vacancies filled. All right, do you have any questions from my board members for that?
This is Dr. D'Amico, and thank you for that. And I hope, put a lot of my effort into helping this board to move forward. And so I'm very invested in its success. And along those lines, I just have a question. We have put off for more than 4 years the minor surgeries and other things because of this not requirement, I think, but an ideal that we would have an MD-DO appointee that would be part of that committee. As we all ultimately work for the governor, he's our boss. I'm just wondering if we can't just move forward with those and perhaps consider having a member who's not, much like we've had Dr. Osborne consult with us on IV requirements, if we couldn't have an MD-DO consult with us on minor surgery that isn't necessarily a board member, because I fear that if we continue to put off our business in the hopes that we get someone appointed, we may go 10 years, we may go 12 or 15 years, and it would be better to just, I feel, to move forward with some proposals, get some dialogue going, and see what can happen without waiting for that, unless there's a specific hard requirement that we have to have
So
somebody on that.
That's a great question and comment, Dr. D'Amico. Thank you so much for that. There is actually a requirement for our advisory boards, at least for the minor office procedures and for the drug formulary and for what was the other one? I believe those are the two that require um, the the MD or DO and then a pharmacist as well. So because of that, we definitely do have to have them sitting on that advisory committee. However, it does not have to be a member of our board. So if there is an MD or DO that is willing to come and sit on the advisory committee, we could definitely do that. We have not had any, from my understanding, there has just been no DOs or MDs that have volunteered for even the board position. So we can definitely go out and put that request out there, though, if the board is ready to do that.
So as I understand this, first, choice A would be that we get an appointment and then we have someone who can serve. Choice B would be that we would have a member of the public who would be willing to serve on those committees, and that would be acceptable, right? And then, and so I think that needs to be more widely circulated through perhaps the association, et cetera, because I don't think that most NDs are aware of that, and they certainly would reach out to their colleagues. The commitment of sitting on an advisory panel is much less than the commitment of being a board member, much less the process of being appointed. So I think that there's a real chance that could be successful if we kind of really put it out there. And then choice C, long shot, choice C would be to try, and this is based on the wording of the law from 2003, is submit a legislative proposal to change the wording of that. And I know that that's a long shot, but at least it will get people talking about the fact that this is a big problem for the board. So please consider that as a third option, and maybe set a deadline to get option A or B done for the board. Because we've been waiting since early 2019 and it's just useless. Like our current approach isn't working. So we need to submit that back, look at all our options, and then the people that have more power than we do who are in charge can decide what they want us to do with that. So just my 2 cents as I head out the door.
Some great options. Thank you. And we'll definitely look into that. And I will work with CNDA to put some requests out to see if we can recruit some advisory committee members that are an MDDO. Thank you.
Hi, Rebecca. This is Taparshi Mukherjee.
Hi.
As the DO on the board, I'm more than happy to help. I think we had started talking about this process when I started last year. I think we couldn't meet at the end of 2022, but I'd be happy to be involved and help as much as I can. Again, I know we had talked about this last year, so let me know how I can help, and happy to join those committees if that helps get the ball rolling.
Perfect. That would be great. So I will reach out to you offline and we'll see about the, whether we can go ahead and bring that MOP back and reconvene. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah,
Dr.
no worries.
Taparshi.
Happy to help. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much. Great. And do we have any other questions from our members? Okay, I do not see any. So I'm going to go ahead and just move forward, and I'll take the questions as we just kind of go down these. So staffing, during the 2022 oversight sunset review process, the board provided information to the legislature about the ongoing issues with the unlicensed practice. Assembly Bill 2685, Chapter 414, Statutes of 2022, was the sunset bill that changed the committee to the California Board of Naturopathic Medicine, along with providing authority to hire an additional staff member to assist with the large unlicensed activity we see here in California. I have developed the duty statements in the new Consumer Protection Service Analyst position. This is a full-time permanent position with the board. The recruitment process has started, and the first set of candidate interviews for the position are scheduled for December 18th and 19th. So hopefully by mid-January or the 1st of February at the latest, we should have a new staff in place that will be working with the Consumer Protection Services. Do we have any questions about that? It is very exciting, and I'm so proud to be able to provide that presentation. All right, I don't see any, so we're going to go ahead and move along. All right, so let me go ahead and provide the licensing statistics. So the applications received and approved between July 1st, 2023 and December 5th, 2023 are as follows. We received 56 license apps and approved 39. And again, this was as of the 5th, so I think we've had a couple of others approved since then. The initial license fee, we received 49 and processed and approved 48. The renewal apps received are 229. And so the totals you see there are all of the applications received and all of the applications that are processed. The difference that you see here in the renewals between the 308 that were received and the 229 that were approved could just possibly be that we're waiting for something that they were supposed to have sent us and they had not yet. But those are generally approved automatically through the Breeze system. All right. And if I can move along to there you go. Thank you so much. All right. So currently we have, current active licensees are 1,020. Inactive current are 25. Delinquent is 131, and other, which is retired and etc., are 239. We've got 1,415 total licensees under our jurisdiction. Any questions about the licensing statistics? Yes, Mr. Yam.
Thank you so much. Just a quick question as well. What is delinquent versus, I guess, inactive, or like what is that threshold?
Great, thank you. That's a great question. So yes, in our act, in the Naturopathic Doctors Act, the licensees are allowed to allow their license to go delinquent for 3 years before it will automatically be canceled. Anytime within that 3-year period, they can pay the delinquent fee, they can pay their renewal fee, and show the CE that is required, and they can then be relicensed or renewed. If, however, they do not do that within that 3-year period, their license automatically cancels and they can no longer renew that license. Now, they can reapply and get another license, but it will never be that license number that they let lapse for over 3 years. So at that point, it becomes canceled. And so there are a lot of times where you will see that they leave it delinquent. And so it sits in that delinquent, status for 3 years, and then it kind of falls off. So we normally see a large delinquent number there. And it's only because there are a lot of times where we have licensees come into the state. They're here for a couple of years, and then because of the restrictiveness of scope, they'll either go up to, Oregon, Washington, or another neighboring state that has a more broader scope for naturopathic doctors. And so we unfortunately see that delinquent status a lot.
I see. Okay, well that's good to know. I mean, I'm sure that as kind of discussions go and as strategic planning goes, I think it's somewhat of a bit of a high-ish number to know that 8% of the licenses are delinquent. And so I look forward to perhaps seeing whether, even if it's under our charge, to be reducing these delinquent licenses. But thank you so much.
Of course, thank you so much for the question. Were there any other questions on the licensing statistics? All right, great. So let me go ahead and I'll move forward with the enforcement. All right. So the unlicensed activity continues to remain the largest portion of the board's enforcement caseload, making up 64% of the cases. There does seem to be an uptick in the enforcement cases against unlicensed individuals since our last meeting. If you remember right, we had a pretty, we've seen a reduction in that. And I think it was just because of those educational letters and stuff that we sent out. And I know that, there's that kind of idea that we go after all of these traditional naturopaths that are doing the right thing, and that is just not the case. We go after the individuals who are either using the ND title or who are working within the naturopathic doctor scope and providing diagnosis, or having their clients stop medications that are prescribed by an MD, DO, or an ND or another practitioner. So those are the types of cases that we do go after for the unlicensed activity. So let me see here. You can see right now that of the 137 cases that we currently have, 88 of those are against unlicensed individuals or unlicensed activity. And then there are 49, which is 36% of those cases are against our licensees. The unlicensed activities consist of the following violation types, which is using the naturopathic doctor title, which is prohibited in California Business and Professions Code 3660, not providing a written disclaimer of unlicensed practice to their client, and having a signed copy by the client on file per California Business and Professions Code section 2053.6. Providing diagnosis in violation of California Business and Professions Code Section 2053.5, advising their clients to discontinue medications prescribed by licensed healthcare providers, also prohibited within California Business and Professions Code 2053.5, providing treatment within the scope of an ND without the benefit of a license, California Business and Professions Code Section 3644, and causing harm or death to clients, which is also prohibited, California Business and Professions Code 3644. The board has 27 new cases submitted by July 1st, 2023. Staff's been working hard on getting complaints closed. Since the last report on 6/29/2023, the enforcement unit has closed 3 cases. One case is currently being set for hearing with the Attorney General's office. And currently there are several cases that have been resolved and are just waiting for management's review so that they can be closed in the system. Are there any questions about the enforcement statistics for the unlicensed folks? Dr. D'Amico.
How do you know when someone is providing a diagnosis? Is it because the patients are bringing them to you?
Yes. Either the patient or a patient advocate brings it to us, or another practitioner. We've gotten MDs that have a patient that goes and sees a traditional naturopath, and the traditional naturopath, they're seeing them for, let's say, cancer, because this has actually happened before. And so they go to a traditional naturopath to kind of assist with making them feel well as they're going through whatever, chemo or whatever they're doing for cancer. And the traditional naturopath has told them, hey, stop taking that. We're going to put you on all of these, natural supplements, and we're going to help you get well, and stop taking those chemo, therapies, or those, drugs that the MD is having you take. Well, when the MD gets word of this, they will send a complaint to us on behalf of their patient. Other times patients have sent in the consumer complaint. We also have family members of patients who, when they went and seen a traditional naturopath, they could have been cured, and then seeing the traditional naturopath being told not to go in and get any kind of other practitioners involved in their cancer treatment have then become, terminal. And so those are the types of things that the district attorney's office, will take and they will prosecute for. So again, those are straight violations of the Medical Practice Act, and not even our Practice Act, but that is a violation of the Medical Practice Act for unlicensed healing arts professionals.
So often for diagnosis, it would be a patient comes to see a licensed practitioner saying, this person gave me a diagnosis of blank. I
Right.
see. Thank you.
Yep. Of course. Any other questions on that before I move forward? Okay. All right. Seeing none, we will go ahead and move forward to the violation types that make up enforcement cases against our licensees and applicants. Violation types are separated into several violation categories. Currently, the board has, oh, sorry, where are we? Currently, we have 49 cases, and of those 49 cases against the licensees, the breakdowns are 8 for advertising violations, failure to update address with the committee. We did not have any of those this time around. Substance abuse related violations, we have 7. And again, this is for DUI related, substance abuse related type of things. Unprofessional conduct, we've got 34 or 64%. Records only, let's see, we had 1 this time around. And then patient harm, there were 0 this time around. Any questions on the license violations?
And let's be clear, these are accusations, not decided violations, right?
That is correct. All right, and I don't see any. Oh, yes, Mr. Yam.
Yes, my apologies. This is more sort of just a request, I think, to you, Rebecca. If I could, perhaps afterwards, I think perhaps my colleagues are much more familiar with the process than I am, but would love to later get maybe some sort of document that sort of overviews the enforcement process and the steps that it goes towards, because it's also something that I'm not quite yet familiar with.
Absolutely. I will put it on our meeting agenda for the next meeting. I'll have somebody from the Division of Investigation come over and provide kind of an overview of kind of what happens when we receive an enforcement complaint, and just kind of how it trickles into the process of being investigated. And then once it's investigated, if we see that there's merit involved in those violations, then if it of course is a licensee, it'll, we send it to the AG's office. If it's something against a unlicensed individual, then of course it gets recommended to the district attorney in whatever region that they're in. So that's basically how it goes, but I will definitely have a high level review for all of the new folks, and just a kind of a reminder for everybody else that's on the board.
Wonderful, thank you.
Of course, thank you. Any other questions? All right. I think we're done there. So if you want to go out to public comment, I think we are ready for that. Dr. Thompson?
So yes, we are opening for public comment. Moderator.
Thank you. We've opened the WebEx Q&A feature to facilitate public comment. If you'd like to make a comment on the executive officer's report, you may look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right of your WebEx screen. Type the word comment in that text box and click send. The other option is to raise your hand by clicking on the hand icon, and our call-in users may raise their hand by pressing *3. Any comments on the executive officer's report? And I do not see any requests. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Please do. Thank you.
You're welcome.
At this point, it is 11:30, and I think we need to allow everyone to have a bathroom break. Before we do that, I just want to check in with everyone. At this point, I just want to see how many items we have left on the agenda. Looks like we have agenda item 9, 10, and 11, as well as future agenda items and meeting dates and adjournment. It would make sense to me to take a 10-minute break now, allow people to use the restroom, grab a snack if they need one, and try to get through these last items without taking a longer break for lunch, with hopes that we could adjourn, close to 1 o'clock or a little after. Is anyone opposed to that plan?
Chair Thompson, can we provide a 15-minute break? That way our audio visual and our moderators and stuff have time to go to where they need to go and come back. It just gives them a couple extra seconds.
Yeah, I mean, 15 minutes is fine with me. But is everyone okay with the shorter break now, finishing the meeting prior to a longer lunch break? Is that going to not work for anyone?
Agreed with that suggestion. I don't know if you're asking for agreement as well.
Yep, that sounds great.
Fantastic. Okay, so we will adjourn now. It's 11:35, so we'll come back at 11:50, and then we'll address the rest of the meeting items at that time. I look forward to speaking to everyone soon.
Thank you.
Okay, is everyone back from our break?
I can go ahead and do a roll call to make sure that we have quorum again.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Dara Thompson.
Sorry about that computer issue. Present.
Thank you. Dr. Greta D'Amico.
Present.
Dr. Vera Singleton.
Present.
Dr. Deparshi Mukherjee.
Present.
Dr. Bruce Davidson.
Present.
Dr. Mina Yoon.
Present.
And Mr. Andy Yam.
Present.
Great. Looks like we have quorum and everybody is back.
Wonderful. So now we're going to move on to agenda item 9, strategic planning development overview and presentation. Do we have someone here to present that, or are you doing that, Rebecca?
We do have somebody that will be doing the presentation for us.
Wonderful. Okay. Are Anne and Elizabeth present?
Good morning. Yes, I'm Elizabeth Cornell. I'm the manager of the Solid Strategic Planning and Facilitation team. I've been with Solid Planning over 7.5 years as a strategic business analyst and facilitator. And I will be conducting the strategic planning process for your board this upcoming year, here in a few weeks. So today I will provide you with an overview of the strategic planning process here within the department. I'm going to turn off my camera and I will have you focus on the strategic planning overview presentation that I have for you. And I'm going to take the presenter role here. Okay. So we'll get started first with the what, the why, and the how of strategic planning. So what is strategic planning? Strategic planning is the process through which fundamental decisions and actions are produced that shape and guide what an organization is, what it does, and why it does it. It defines your organization's direction, outlining a path from your present towards a preferred future. A strategic plan takes into account your board's mission, vision, values, goals, and stakeholder feedback, and documents objectives and initiatives that are important to you as an organization. Why is a strategic plan needed? Well, strategic planning is a critical to making state government programs and operations more efficient and effective. In the 1990s, early 1990s, legislation enacted required California state agencies to develop strategic plans, measurable performance objectives, and continuous improvements. Additionally, creating strategic plans is designed to help you, the program, achieve short-term and long-term objectives. For a strategic plan to work, it must contain specific goals and measurable objectives, as well as a plan for achieving them. How is a strategic plan created? Well, here at the Department of Consumer Affairs, we have a 5-phase approach, which includes the surveying of various stakeholder groups that are important to your board, a trends report of the stakeholder feedback received, and a facilitated workshop where we guide board members and the executives in identifying objectives for its plan. So let's look at the strategic planning roadmap here in more detail. There are 5 stages in the strategic planning process. Each stage contains a broad list of tasks that take place. Lastly, we have optional services which can be incorporated within the first 3 stages. So in the first stage, we have the preliminary meeting and the setup. We get to know the board, define or tailor the process specifically to the board's needs. Next is the environmental scan. This takes up the majority of the process. Here we're doing interviews with board members, with the executive staff. We conduct surveys. We send out surveys to the external stakeholders, and we compile all of this information. We analyze it, we create summaries, we create a report for all of you to review, and in preparation for the planning session, where you will get to review your mission, vision, values, and goals, and revise them should you desire to do so. But then the meaning of the planning session is to develop objectives based on the research on the scan and also any other issues that you would like to address. Then the strategic plan is created, is drafted, is reviewed between Solid and the executive officer, and a copy is provided to you for your edits and review approval during an upcoming meeting. Then action planning is conducted, and I'll go in a little bit more detail here in a little bit. But next, I would like to address diversity, equity, and inclusion. As you may be aware, the governor issued an executive order to strengthen the state's commitment to California for All by directing state agencies and departments to take additional actions to embed equity, analysis, and considerations into its policies and practices. That includes the strategic planning process. So here at DCA, we are driven by our consumer protection mission and common goal to support our employees and the people and communities across California. And such, you'll find that we have improved our strategic planning process to reflect our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, also known as DEI. So DEI and demographic specific questions have been incorporated into the environmental scan surveys and the questions within those surveys. Analysis of the responses to these specific questions will be provided in the environmental scan report for you to review and consider when developing objectives for your upcoming strategic plan. And at that time during the planning session, you will have the opportunity to consider these DEI impacts of, on policy decisions when developing your objectives. So now let's take a look at the components of a strategic plan. Being more specific here, the process. So the Department of Consumer Affairs uses the Department of Finance's strategic planning guide to provide a benchmark to evaluate the strategic planning process. An effective strategic plan answers where your board is at now through its mission, values, and the environmental scan. It also answers where does your board want to be through its vision, goals, and objectives. And lastly, how will your board get there through an action plan and performance measures? Let's get started here with the mission. Where is your board now? The answer starts here with the mission. A mission statement defines the purpose of your organization by explaining what it does. While your mission defines your organization, your values define how you do it, how you accomplish your mission. So a set of values are your guiding principles, and they communicate your core priorities, your mission, how stakeholders are treated, and the desired culture, those things that you feel most important to you as a board. If you have a desire to update the board's mission, values, or vision, which we will discuss here in a moment, please let your executive officer know so we can build that into your board's strategic planning process. Moving on to the environmental scan, that is the last method here that is used to answer where your board is at now. During the environmental scan, we do seek feedback from both your internal and external stakeholders through which is done through an assessment known as SWOT analysis, which focuses on the organization's strengths and weaknesses while identifying opportunities and threats. Internal stakeholders typically include board members, the executive officer, and staff, any other legal or any other positions there within as well. Some example of external stakeholders may include consumers, consumer groups, licensees, industrial associations, and any other who may affect or are affected by the board or the industry that the board regulates. Now moving on to the next question that strategic planning answers is, where are you going as a board? So where you are going is answered or is illustrated by a successful future. Where does your board want to be after it accomplishes its mission, its goals, its objective? And moving on to goal areas, that also answers where you are going. And here, goal areas are long-term and they're broad. They give general direction where, and you'll see in a moment, objectives. Objectives are short-term. They're typically the length of your strategic plan. They're narrow. They give specific direction and action. So for example, a goal area would be technology. An objective under technology would be something like develop software application functionality to support enforcement and field investigations. So that's the differentiation there between goals and objectives. And goals can also be redefined during the strategic planning process. The objectives are typically created for each goal area based on the important trends that are identified by stakeholders in the environmental scan, as well as any issues or initiatives that the board would like to address. During the strategic planning session, you and your management team will have time to discuss, assess, and develop objectives for the next several years. After your board has identified where it wants to be through the drafting of objectives during the strategic planning session, the next step is to determine how your board will get there. The board's management team will meet with Solid to discuss the strategic plan objectives, assess available resources, and outline the action steps towards accomplishing the established objectives through identification of individual tasks, assignments of those tasks, and establishing target timeframes within which to complete those tasks. This is also known as action planning. And again, this is typically done between Solid and the staff or the executive staff from the board. During action planning, performance measures are established. So that is how the board is able to keep track of the successful completion of strategic objectives. Also, monitoring and tracking tools are provided to the board to help assist with this. A strategic plan's timeframe is anywhere from 3 to 5 years. And again, these tools help with regular check-ins and reporting to you, the board. And that is all I have for you today in terms of an introduction to strategic planning. And let me turn on my camera here. We are going to get started here at the beginning of next year. So you will hear from me, whether it's through an email or if we do establish or schedule an interview for the environmental scan process. So you'll be hearing from me and getting an email from me. So any questions?
Thank you so much for that presentation. That was a great reminder for me, and I'm sure very helpful for people who are new to the process.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. I appreciate your presentation.
Welcome. Thank you. Should you have any questions, feel free to reach out to Rebecca, and I'm happy to answer any questions any of your board members may have.
It did appear that we had a hand raised from member Davidson.
Oh, thank you. Yes, thank you for that presentation. It was a very helpful overview. So, in anticipation of hearing from you after the first of the year, are there update reports on goal achievement that we might be able to review?
I think Rebecca has some. Oh, go ahead.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Yes, so I actually, within your meeting materials, I provided you with the current action plan, which spans 2020 through 2024. So we do have the remainder of 2024 to ensure that we have met those goals that you guys have put into place. And then I also provided a copy of the action plan, which was how we were going to tackle those goals and the items that you guys put into place. And then I also provided a copy of the Gantt chart, which is basically kind of the chart showing you what has been done, if we're behind in any of those things, and when to anticipate the remainder of those to be completed. And if you take a look, and I believe that this was, I'm not sure which, trying to see what the number of the attachment was, but basically it is the NMC action plan that had the red, yellow, and green columns in it. And we do have a few items, but they are all items that are going to be taken care of within the Q1 and Q2, basically, of the 2024 year. So with that being said, there are a couple of items, and I did kind of update the members on all of the items and how they were completed. If there's any questions on those, please feel free to ask them, and I will do my best on answering kind of where we are in the those goals and the completion dates. Dr. Yoon.
Thank you. I remember doing the strategic planning sessions from prior. So is this something that we are planning to do in person again sometime in the spring? Or are we working off this existing plan from previously?
So we will be doing another action plan, and for that planning session, after kind of all of those surveys and everything are sent out, I believe at that point is when we will all come together as a board group, and that's when you guys will actually start your planning session. So if I'm mistaken, please correct me, but I believe that is kind of the process that it'll go. You'll first receive some information from myself or Elizabeth, and then moving forward, once she starts collecting all of the information, we will be meeting all in person here in Sacramento for the actual planning session itself.
Perfect. Thank you.
Of course. Dr. D'Amico?
Yes, in looking over the action plan items, each goal is broken down into objectives or tactics that were to try to reach that goal. And what I wasn't sure I was seeing, although I saw completion dates for those objectives, is the success measure actually met for each of those? Because that's ultimately the goal.
Right. So if it says like number 1.1.1 is ensure the staff is processing all applications within the performance measure timeline. So basically in fiscal year 2021-22, we put everything in place where the procedures and the kind of objectives that you guys wanted us to meet were placed in policy and procedures here in the office so that now we are meeting those deadlines. So within 10 days, we are responding to an enforcement complainant and letting them know that we've received their case. So basically those items, if it says that, in fiscal year 2021, it was completed, basically it is that, that objective. The only caveat to that is if there is a little memo to the right, there were a couple of them where I actually did give an update on kind of what was done. So there were like, for instance, let me see if I can find one of them. So basically for like 2.1.2, it says add list of violators to the newsletter if still allowable. So we've actually requested information from legal and from the AG's office whether we can provide those citation and fines for unlicensed activity on our website and if that was legal to do. So I am still waiting to hear back for that. I know that other states do have that for their public so that the public knows if they're going and seeing somebody that is portraying a licensee when they're really not. And so, for those types of things, I have included little kind of memo notes on the side for you guys. And then basically, let's see if I can find something else that
Just in the one you just did, for example, the actual objective is to strengthen penalties for illegal use of the ND title to protect consumers. So
Right.
do we assume that that is achieved?
Well, it is in the process of being achieved. I mean, some of these are going to be ongoing for sure. I mean, as you see, the last meeting, there was definitely a decrease in some of those unlicensed activities, whereas this time, we've actually had a little bit of a ramp up in some of the those individuals that are using the ND title or that are working within the ND scope. So I'm not sure why we're seeing that trend right now, unless there's just maybe some traditional naturopaths that have come into California and they're just not aware of the scope that they are supposed to be kind of within and remaining within. And so again, our efforts for the educational piece to these individuals remain steadfast, and we do as much as we can. With the new enforcement person, I think that kind of outreach to maybe, we can make some contacts with the CNA, which is the association that has the members of those traditional naturopaths here in California. And maybe we can work with them so that they can advise their membership group of what those laws are here in California. And maybe that will kind of bring down some of that as well. So again, some of these things are going to be ongoing. Some of them, we put things in place so that these objectives were met, but there's still going to be objectives and policies and procedures that we, as the staff here in the board, will continue to do to make sure that these are realized.
It might be helpful to, I was looking for ones that are actually done, meaning they're not going to be carrying over with new objectives. And one of them was 3.5 and adding an Aunt Nancy Act to broaden continuing education opportunities. I'm sure for the other board members, it'd be very satisfying to see like a big old check mark on that thing on the green part saying it's not just the objectives that are done, but the actual goal has been met. Because we have a distinction between all the stuff we've tried to do and the actual accomplishing of the goal. And that needs to be part of the planning process is, do we need to change our tactics if, we did a bunch of stuff and we still didn't reach the goal? And of course, there's a lot of things we don't have control over. But I think that helps in the planning. And I just want to acknowledge how much has been done. I mean, it's a lot. So with appreciation.
Yeah, of course, I absolutely appreciate that. And, staff does an amazing job just trying to keep up with everything with, you know, the limited amount of resources that we have on hand. So with the addition of an additional person in the office, I think it's really going to assist us in making sure that we are carrying out those objectives that the board put in place.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you. Were there any other questions on this? And I will make sure that I go in and put a report together so that the board members are aware of actually what has been totally completed, and that we don't have to, you know, look into for the next session planning. But I will make sure that you guys have that before we start the planning for the next strategic plan. Dr. Singleton.
Yes, if I remember correctly, it was a separate session, separate from our meetings, correct, for the strategic planning?
That is correct. And Michael, maybe you can jump in. I believe that that is still how it goes. I know that we had to publicly notice it, but then once we called for public comment, and then we were allowed to kind of close it for a working session. I don't know if that is still how it is done, but Michael, maybe you can jump in there.
Yeah, it would need to be part of a publicly noticed meeting because all the board members would be present, or at least you know, more than three, and it can be done as a separate meeting, or you can have a 2-day meeting. There's a lot of different options there, and I don't need to tell you how to conduct that, but does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Great.
Perfect, thank you. Any other questions?
This is Dr. D'Amico. Just based on what council just said, might want to think about having a 2-day meeting because it might be cheaper to just do it all in one fell swoop with overnight stays versus trying to arrange 2 separate meetings. And then you can do a meeting and strategic planning at the same time.
Yeah, we might be able to do that. I will definitely look at our budget and take that into consideration. Thank you. All right, and do we need to go out for public comment?
Yes, on each agenda item.
Thank you. This is the moderator, and we've opened up the public comment feature of WebEx. If anyone would like to make a comment, you may look for the question mark icon, type the word comment, and click send, or you may look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand, and our call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Are there any comments on the strategic planning presentation? And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
All right, now we're moving on to agenda item number 10, discussion of prospective legislative proposals. And Rebecca, is this one of the ones we're going to talk about the CE issue?
Yes, this is where we're going to speak about CE issues and authority and gaining authority to make those types of changes. So as you are now aware of what the difference is between a legislative proposal and an omnibus bill legislative proposal, I have included some of the kind of frequently brought up issues that we tend to see, and some of those proposals that have been brought up in some of our prior meetings. One of those were to update the CE to include virtual remote training, which would be considered live. So, you know, where you have the proctor, the person that's providing the CE course, and then of course that there's some kind of exam or questions involving some virtual live training versus pre-recorded, which are not considered live. I know that with the COVID-19 pandemic, you know, we were allotted the CE to be virtual at that time. That is no longer the case. And because we still have some very outdated statutes, we do have some inference in there that it has to be in-person courses. So we would like to request that that be updated. And because that is not something that's just a change, unsubstantial change, and we have to actually request this proposal within a legislative request. We also have add the reduced inactive fee of $500 to the fee schedule. Right now, we are reducing that fee for those that are trying to get inactive, but we would actually like to have it in statute and reduce that fee within our fee schedule for those that are going inactive and maybe working out of state. Amend the IV therapy requirement to include applying for the request to add specialty to the license for ease of identification, and to identify that additional scope to the public and to the pharmacists. We had kind of some back and forth that we may not have the authority to do so. However, because of the public safety that would be kind of lacking there. At this time, we do actually request that anybody that has met that IV therapy advises our board so that we can put that modifier on their license for easy identification. And I think that it is a benefit for the licensee and for the public. So we want to make sure that that actually gets added to our statute. And then also something that you guys may want to update, and I just added this as well, is to add the DEA MATE Act requirement, which is, I believe it's a 7 or 8 hour course in opioid addiction. And that is a one-time requirement that if you have a DEA registration, you have to meet. So we want to make sure that we add that into our well, it may be something that you guys may want to add into the CE statute portion. Of course, it could still be used in that 60 hours that they're required to do. Also, the IV therapy and advanced injection therapy CE, to either ask for the authority to update the CE changes as they kind of come up in trend. And I believe that there's a couple of other boards out there that already have that in there so that they're not running to the legislature and asking permission every time a different trend in educational or continuing education comes up. Were there any questions or are there any comments or suggested proposals that the board members would like to bring up? Dr. D'Amico.
I have two questions. The inactive fee, is that what you pay to be inactive versus losing your license for 3 years?
That is correct, yes.
Okay. And then is the summary of the fourth bullet really the authority to update CE changes as needed? That would kind of cover everything, right?
It would, if we can get something that broad. I know that there's similar language in other boards. I believe the vet med has something to that effect, and they are allowed to change within their regulations, CE types. So I can definitely go out and get some sample language for you guys from a couple of the other boards that I know do have that. But yeah, you're right. That would definitely kind of cover all of that CE stuff that we're needing. And it would allow the board to put those changes in regulation rather than try to get legislative change every single time.
Right. I would support taking a look at that language and approving it, in the future.
Okay.
Regarding the DEA MATE Act, is it necessary to repeat that in our own regulations when it's already required if you have a DEA number? Because, most of us we all had to do it or we can't even be active with DEA.
Right. And that's definitely up to you guys. It's something that you can either incorporate into our act or that you can just put a reminder on our website somewhere saying, hey, if you're going to have a DEA registration, you got to make sure that you've taken the, your your required DEA Meet Act course. So we can do it either way. I just wanted to throw that in there because there are a couple of boards that have incorporated it. So I just wanted to put that in there if you guys wanted to as well.
I would lean toward putting it on the website and saving yourself some work. And if we can get the authority to update as needed, then we're covered.
Yep.
Going forward.
I agree. All right, and Dr. Yoon.
I've been just recently looking at the DA mate because I'm up for renewal for my DA license as well. And there is a list from the AANP of all of the different providers for the 8 hours. And I think that's super helpful to maybe have on our website so that when people are up for that, that would be great. And then our previous speaker mentioned that the omnibus bills have to be in by January 12th, 2024. Is this something that you're planning on putting in for this?
It is.
Okay.
It is. I just, unfortunately, I've already worked through the majority of our statute right now and have updated all the references from committee to board, changed the board committee name to the board, the board name. So I have went in and I'm almost done with it. I just didn't have it done in time to present that proposed language in this one. But I just wanted to let you guys know that that is something that you guys have mentioned in our prior meetings and that I have actually started. So we will have that in time for that January date for the omnibus bill.
Perfect. That's a lot of work. Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Any other questions on those, or does anybody have any other suggested legislative proposals that they may want to bring on here so that we can kind of start looking at language as we move forward? Okay, and I was notified that the dental board has authority in their statute as well to update CE. So we'll definitely take a look at those language samples, and I'll get those to you guys as well. All right. Well, if there are no other questions from my members, I think we are ready for public comment on this.
Thank you. And we've opened up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment. If anyone would like to make a comment, you can look for the question mark icon, type the word comment in that text box and click send. You can look for the hand icon and click that to raise your hand. And call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Each speaker will have 3 minutes. Is there any comment on the presentation? I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Yes, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. We are moving on to agenda item number 11, discussion and possible action of omnibus legislative proposals.
So again, I will, like I just mentioned, I'm almost done with all of our statutes, sections in our statute to make those changes. I will get that out to the board and hopefully we may need to call one board meeting. Hopefully we can do it by the end of the year. I don't know if we have enough time, but if I can get the rest of these, the sections completed, and I don't even know if I need an action for an omnibus bill. Michael, do you know if I need to do an action on this one with our board? Or is this something that I can put in without the action of our board members?
Because it would be a board legislative proposal, this would be something that the board would need to take action on. If you're simply providing technical assistance to a member or someone else, then that's something that you can do on the side. But if the board's going to propose support, take a position on a bill, they would need to take action via motion.
Perfect. So then what I'm going to do is as soon as we adjourn from this meeting today, I will go ahead and get back onto that. I will get that language proposed language done. I will get it out to the board members so that you guys can take a look at that. I will try to get another virtual meeting with all of us. It'll be a 20 minutes, if that, maybe during a lunch time, and then we can all jump on before the change of the Bagley-Keene Act before the end of the year, so that we can then take the legislative proposal to the legislature before the January date.
This is Dr. D'Amico. Quick question.
Yes.
Are we able to waive our per diem rate for a single meeting?
I don't know. Not sure if we can or not. I know that because per diem is for an 8-hour business day, there are times where, boards have, an hour here for a board member training, or, a half day that they go and do a advisory committee board. And so they'll take that half day plus another half day and make one per diem day. So there's definitely some wiggle room there, but we do have to pay you guys for your time and service to the board. So I definitely wouldn't suggest waiving your fee, but we could definitely combine partial days to make one complete per diem.
Yeah, we meet so rarely, and we're like the most constrained we could be because of budget. So I'd hate for the need for us to have a quick meeting to approve something to be such a hit on the budget before the new year even gets going, even though I know it's not our fiscal year.
Sure, of course. Thank you for that question, Dr. D'Amico. And folks, that is why we love her so much. She's always thinking about these things. So I really do appreciate you, Dr. D'Amico, and I'm really going to miss you at the end of the year. So hopefully we'll be able to have that meeting before December 31st. All right. I think if there's no other questions for agenda item 11, we could probably request public comment.
And this is the moderator. If anyone would like to make a comment on the omnibus proposals, you may look for the question mark icon, typically in the lower right of your WebEx screen or behind the 3-dot other options if you're on a mobile device. Type the word comment and click send, or you may click on the hand icon to raise your hand, and call-in users can press *3 to raise their hand. Are there any comments on any omnibus proposals? All right, thank you. I don't see any requests for comment. Shall I close that public comment feature?
Yes, please.
You're welcome.
Okay, that leads us into discussing future meeting dates, and it looks like we need to at least have a brief meeting before the end of the year if we can make that work for everyone in their holiday schedules. Is there anyone who is absolutely unavailable before the end of the year?
And remember, it can be virtual if we make it before the end of the year. So it can be, like I said, it can be a quick during the, everybody's lunch break. So what I can do is if you guys aren't ready right now to go into your schedules and pick a date for that 12/31 meeting. And just remember that I have to have at least 10 days for public comments. For public notice. So I need to get an agenda together, which is only going to have the one item on it plus public comment. And then, but it has to be at least 10 days out from right now. So, and then give or take a couple of days. So it's probably going to be really, really close to that end date. Bring my calendar up, but I can send a doodle out with like 2 or 3 options, and we're just going to have to try to see if we can get quorum.
I just think that if we can try and find a date right now where everyone's here, it would be better, because once we send out the doodle, we may lose some people, and we may be able to come up with a date right now that everyone can do. So, I know that we've done pretty well with Tuesdays and Thursdays previously.
Right.
How far out do you need it to be? Like, could we do it next week if everyone could make it work, Rebecca?
No, because we need 10 days. So really what we have right now is the 27th, 28th, or 29th, because that's going to allow me to get an agenda together, to get our legal to review that agenda, and then to allow some lead time for our web team to post it within that 10-day period, or, to give that 10-day period for public. So 27th, 28th, or 29th is basically what we're looking at right now. And I'd have to have
Is
that
there
agenda
anyone
by the
who
18th.
cannot meet on Thursday, the 28th, which is 2 weeks from today? If we make it a brief meeting, anyone who's unavailable that day?
At noon.
You ping, I'm not available, are you?
Which day are we talking about again? The 28th?
The 28th, yes.
Thursday, the 28th, yes.
I will be out of town.
Yeah, I'm not available that Thursday or Friday.
Do we need to have legal present for this?
We do, yeah. So let me see, the
What about
27th.
Wednesday, the 27th? Are either of you available on that day?
I'm out that entire week. I have previous commitments.
I'm available to the 27th.
Okay, so the 27th, and I'm going to be really honest with you guys, we may get pushed back. So I would have to have the agenda approved by legal by tomorrow so that it can be posted tomorrow evening, because it would have to be posted by Monday morning
Okay,
to meet the
wait,
10
but it
days.
sounds like if we need legal, the 27th is the only day that's even a possibility for us. So
Yep.
let's try and confirm a time that would work for people.
This is Dr. D'Amico. Is there a rule that we have to be in California?
Michael?
You mean that the meeting occur in California?
No.
Or the
And
virtual.
I don't
members
believe so.
physically be
I
in
believe the
California.
board could not itself meet in another state, but if you're participating from somewhere else, I think that's going to be fine.
So wherever we are, if we can take 20 minutes.
That's it. That's all I'm asking for.
I'm just gonna say that on the 27th, I can absolutely meet, but I could not meet at noon. It would need to be a little bit later in the afternoon.
1 p.m.?
I could do 1:30 if that works.
Is everybody okay with a 1:30 to 2 o'clock meeting on 12/27, which is a Wednesday?
That's fine with me. This is Vera.
Okay with me. This is Bruce.
Perfect.
Okay with me, this is Andy.
Okay, it sounds like with just those okays, we have a quorum. So I'm going to go ahead. I will send out an agenda. I will get that over to our legal team right after this board meeting, and then try to get them to post it tomorrow so that we meet that 10-day public comment. Or, I'm sorry, 10-day public posting period. All right, so we have that for the omnibus bill language. All right, and then basically for agenda items for future meetings, we've got the EO evaluation that we'll need to do in the first quarter. Board logos, those new design colors, I'll be bringing that to you during the next board meeting as well. And then the rulemaking process, I'll be giving you guys an update, and hopefully by that time, the advisory committee of the IV therapy will have their recommendations for that regulatory change for you guys. So basically what we're looking for is in the first quarter, we definitely want to have a meeting. And again, it probably will not be hybrid. It will probably be in person unless there's somebody that will need some accommodations, or if there is somebody from SoCal that can't make it down here and we have a majority of our board here, then, we can have a little bit of a hybrid session. That's going to be sometime between January and March, so I can send a doodle out for that time period. strategic planning session. I will be contacting Elizabeth to kind of find out what her timeline is on the strategic planning session. And then based upon when she's going to be getting that information out to you guys and getting that survey done, we'll kind of take it from there on where we're looking at for that session. We'll also want to do at the same time when I send out these doodles, I'm just going to send one out for every quarter for 2024 so that we can get these placed onto our schedule and calendar. And then we can also advise the Solid team who does our moderating for us so that they can kind of make sure that they've got those resources as well. And for our audio visual people who do a great job in making sure that this is presented for the public. So we just want to make sure that everybody has time to make sure that they've got those resources for us. So I will be sending out those 4 different polls, and just go ahead and please give us the best dates and times for you for those, and then we will go with the majority of those dates and times that give us quorum. Are there any questions, and does anybody have anything that they would like to add to the agenda for future meetings? Okay, I don't see any. I'm just looking really quick for something.
Seeing no one, I think we should ask for public comment.
And this is the moderator. We have opened up the WebEx Q&A to facilitate public comment on meeting dates and times. If anyone has any comment, you may look for the question mark icon, type the word comment in that text box and click send, or you may look for the hand icon, click that to raise your hand. Call-in users can press *3 to raise the hand. And I do not see any requests for comment on meeting dates. Shall I close the public comment feature?
Actually, we are now going to ask for any comment for public items not on the agenda, since public members joined after we originally asked that at the beginning of the meeting.
Thank you. If anyone has any comment on topics not on the agenda, you may look for the question mark icon, type the word comment and click send, or you may raise your hand by clicking the hand icon, and our call-in users may press *3. Are there any comments that were for items not on the agenda? And I do not see any requests for comment. Shall I close that field?
Thank you so much. Yes.
You're welcome.
Okay, that was our last agenda item. So at this point, we are going to adjourn our December 14th, 2023 board meeting. Hopefully, we will see all of you in 2 weeks' time for a brief meeting, if Rebecca can pull it all together. I hope everyone has a lovely holiday season, and thank you again for showing up during this busy time. I appreciate you all.
Perfect. Can you call out the adjournment time, please?
It is 12:44 p.m. on December 14th, 2023.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I wish you guys all a great holiday, and I will be talking with you shortly for our next board meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Happy
Bye. Happy holidays.